Hi, I'm Ikea, and for today's video, I want to ramble on for a little bit about Division 1, actually, as I've been revisiting it. I have actually made a run-through with a newer character. I've gotten them now to the point where, yeah, the base of operations is done. Their map is mostly done, not the collectibles yet. We'll go get them at some point. And I've quite enjoyed my time, so I kind of wanted to talk about it. Also, maybe entice a few people to do the same. And as it's very enjoyable, it is just the right amount of Division for those that haven't played it before. And it actually works as a nostalgia piece, as it doesn't play horribly. It's not, nothing is like awful about it when playing Division 2 or having played Division 2. It fits right in. You kind of understand some of the systems. Some of the systems are just enough different that also it trips you up in some ways. And yeah, also I always loved the upgrading over time of the base of operations, starting out as basically a husk and then slowly filling with life and some new old friends.
We've both got shit to do right now. Talk later.
Yeah, well, we will indeed talk later. And yeah, the systems of it have been really enjoyable. I thought I would, in the background, in a little bit, we'll go on a named run, as that was a thing back then, which isn't in Division 2 anymore. And we'll just have a little bit of a chat about it. Okay, here we're heading into, indeed, doing a named run. Although I've done part of it. We're taking the second half here, especially as kind of the recording didn't go well on the first one. But yeah, this used to be an activity, one of the things to do in the open world, because there were actually one of the things as the open world in Division. It's kind of more alive and also less alive. It doesn't have the activity system of Division 2 with control points and just you can just where you can roam the zone and just set it to what you would like. Together also with having targeted loot, which is also a system missing from Division 1, making farming loot a lot more, well, as you can imagine, much more difficult, as would be the case, as if you can't target for something, that's gonna make everything take longer, and it does so in Division 1. But yeah, while the world is a little bit more alive with people being around and just civilians being out on the street, which is also a little bit weird because, you know, there's murderous gangs all about. Just stay home. But also you're running into just random civilians needing help and stuff. Where in Division 2, of course, we only have the hostages. We only have the hostages, and we only have the. As I'm thinking of where this one was. As yeah, one of the things was these named runs. They've been very ingrained into me. On the first one I tried after getting this character to level 30. As this level, I actually leveled over the last few days, over a weekend. It took about 20 hours to get to the end game, which was about what I expected as well. Remember it being, you know, substantial but not too long. Kind of in the same vein as going base game plus end game of Division, but also actually I did skip the world tiers. I of course already had a character from back in the day, so once I reached 30 I just grabbed gear that was available to me in my stash and made a little something out of it. Although actually I started out with just grabbing some stuff from the vendor because I didn't really remember what works and what didn't. Later on, actually, quite recently, I put this together just with, you know, 3-piece striker, ninja bike, very familiar, of course, from Division 2. And at least in Division 1, it makes a lot more sense than in Division 2. Because, yeah, I didn't have 6 pieces of strikers lying around. That's what I wanted to make. I'm still missing a backpack for it, which I'll go and try to acquire over the next few days, as I'll actually stay in Division 1 for a little bit till the new season comes out. Going back only for doing the challenges and stuff, getting a few exotic caches in Division 2. as this as a break from Division 1, or Division 1 as from Division 2. I can totally recommend it, actually. It is the same in a lot of ways, and just enough different that it is quite enjoyable, especially if you haven't played it ever before. If you never played Division 1 at the times that it was out, you can go back and get a little bit of the story, get a little bit of the lore, get a little bit of a different, just similar mechanics, but just in a different map. That already kind of makes it enjoyable by itself. I feel it is, you know, just Division, but then in a different part of the city, because actually, yeah, it's not a different city. We do go to New York, of course, in Division 2 as well with Loney. But we're a little bit up more north. Also, it is not in the same way as with Division 1 or with Division 2 one-to-one map. It is truncated in the way that a lot of open world games do. Something that I really do enjoy about 2 is that, actually. So I'm trying to remember. I remember I was taking cover somewhere, which is actually on this side, right? Yeah. One of those, one of these, and yeah, this setup kind of works. Mostly as well because it is optimized in the same way as with Division 2. If your stats are maxed out, you can get away with a lot more, just being a little bit more awkwardly set up. Because yeah, 6-piece classifieds are king in Division 1, I would say. Here, not having a 6-piece does hurt it, but also not by those great amounts, especially for solo. I used to especially play this game as well, solo. I used to matchmake for missions, the daily missions and stuff, in the same vein that nowadays also existed back then. And you would get people quite often, and that's actually how I mostly played this game. Is I would play a little bit of just, you know, doing this kind of stuff, running around, getting these names as yeah, these guys could drop exotics, could drop classified items, which is the better gear sets. There's in here you can go up to 6 items, as was also the case with Division 2 early on, but you need the special versions of them, which are called classifieds. So there's a whole system there, and also, yeah, actually Phoenix credits, which is something you need for recalibrations and stuff. So I think this was actually one of the things to do in the open world quite often. And it's surprising to me that I feel if I even come back in like 5 years, I'll still know the route most of the way. I might have to like think about it for a second, but it is a very set route, and they have specific spawn positions, and then they're just on a timer. And they're not a global cooldown as they are in Division 2. They're just their own special count cooldown for each of them separately, meaning that you can farm them, which is what we're doing here. But also back then I was because I played Division 1 basically from a year after it came out, and casually, mostly, not so much as in-depth as I've gone with Division 2, and that shows as well in a lot of the choices I was making back then, as we'll also go into my what I would consider the main character of this account, as is that the one I ran around with quite a bit. And also want to talk about just being a filthy casual, basically, not having the understanding of Division or Division-like games that I have now. And kind of how that led to some of the choices that I make. I feel I valued accuracy and stability and such way too much, which is also a thing, of course, in Div 2 nowadays. There are people that very much put way too many stats into either survivability or just weapon convenience. And, well, you can make it work, and I made it work back then. Because I also, in group sessions and stuff, I never felt that I was completely being carried. I likely was, actually, looking back at it from nowadays understanding. But back then, I got through most of the things that I needed to get through. This guy put himself somewhere where he can't shoot me, apparently, and that makes him an easy target for me. But yeah, let's actually go to the character I had for a long time, not this newbie on the block, and let's discuss actually some of the choices I apparently made back then, and kind of talk about, yeah, being the filthy casual that I was. And here we're on the main character of this account, the character I used to play for a bit. As you can see, I do have some things, like, you know, there is at least some completion things, like also having all of the exotics. But yeah, in the end, I got up to 3 stars, or 3, like the third reward here. And as you can see from this, although I think I did play some survival, but I think maybe this got added in later afterwards. But I was never much into survival. I might actually, this is one of the things I do want to maybe get into. Understand now as well that you can basically get full solo, basically, survival, which, it's, you know, sounds appealing actually. And the other thing I never actually did, as mostly a solo player, I never did the legendaries. Also didn't really seem enticing for me to do. There's some rewards tied to it, but nothing I was really after. Also never did any of the incursions. I feel that as well. You kind of needed to be in groups, which I never was. I was really a solo player mostly here that did matchmake. Like, I did matchmake for a bunch of stuff. And yeah, I even did roam the DZ a little bit. But also I wanted to kind of talk about my understanding back then, and kind of as well about how understanding defines what you kind of run. Because actually going back into here, and I've fixed this year up quite a little bit, but actually this should already kind of, for people that know, look a little bit weird. Like, I'm running what in effect is 4-piece Nomad, and then 2-piece Sentry, Call, and 2-piece Striker, which are way too much into accuracy and stability bonuses, as for instance here, and then survivability with the Nomad. This worked out for me though. For solo, I used to run this a lot. I got away with it, mostly as well because it's optimized and stuff, as I did have the playtime in there. And I would run a lot of Lone Star, which was one of the first classifieds I actually got the 6 pieces of. And, you know, once you start playing around with it, you go like, this is pretty good. And Lone Star actually turned out to be pretty good set. But even there, I made some choices that I'm looking at now, as I've actually went through and changed a few things, recalibrated a bunch of stuff. To the best of my ability, more so what I know now, as also I'm much more comfortable, for instance, recoil compensating weapons, having played Division 2, which, you know, has that in spades, in a much more easier form, but also you kind of get used to it, which, for instance, back then, I did play a lot on controller, so on the couch, far away, I can see the thinking there, but I also used to have a lot of just more stability, more survivability stuff. Here, for instance, I've already kind of taken it to more towards damage, and even as I was made aware of, although I likely knew it back then, but I maybe didn't go into it too much. But yeah, having DTE on mods and stuff with purple mods. But also, for instance, here on weapons, I'm making, while this weapon doesn't look too horrible. For instance, actually this MG5, for instance, Destructive, Brutal, and Ferocious. That looks about right for nowadays, but this isn't what I had on this gear set when I logged in a few days ago. And even, for instance, yeah, I really enjoyed Predatory. I remember this talent really being something I gravitated towards, as, yeah, it's just on-kill, heal. We can get behind that, right? Like Palisade and Hunter's Fury nowadays even. But I would do this kind of silly stuff, which I don't think I would do nowadays. And I'm also likely going to spend some time here and actually upgrade them to what I know, or much more, is my playstyle now as well. Being a lot more aggressive, having the damage to do that as well. Here, I don't know why I gravitated towards optimal range this much, because, like, who needs this on a shotgun? I mean, just swap to this and then kill people. But even here, I'm running accuracy and stability mods and even more accuracy mods. Well, this could be crit chance and crit damage. And while the crit chance, crit damages in Division 1 don't stack up to the same levels of Division 2, we don't really go into the above 100s easily in Division 1. Where the commonplace, even on a purple build, I have like 140 crit damage in Division 2. Here, of course, it's much lower numbers, but of course they add up. Even having 30% crit chance and then like 70% crit damage or something to a build, that can make quite the difference. That will be a 30-40% damage increase quite easily. And of course as well, some talents can even work off of that. But yeah, this kind of silliness, I'm very much looking back at and going, especially because, for instance, this is the weapon that I used to have on it, which is even more accuracy above the gear sets, above the mods, even more accuracy with sustained and predatory, which I feel is maybe a little bit overkill. But yeah, that's, you know, there was a time when IKEA was also a little baby and was doing little baby things. Where now I would say I'm likely going to change. Not using this weapon basically as for instance, that's why I grabbed this one from the stash. I did have a bunch of weapons that were more geared towards weapon, towards just outputting more damage, and I'm gravitating much more towards yours. Even without any stability or accuracy, I feel I'm doing fine, especially with ARs now. When back in the day, I feel I needed it a little bit. Although even, for instance, there with the other character that I had there, we had having the pieces from strikers meant that there is some stability from that gear set, as that's what that one provides. But yeah, I used to gravitate way too much to having, even when I'm putting a bunch of crit chance, crit damage on some of the weapons where I'm going like, okay, I want a little bit more damage, I'm still putting in some optimal range for some reason. And I just feel I didn't understand the stat. And that's, of course, a thing that also in Division 2, like, there's plenty of people that still don't understand what skill efficiency is or weapon handling as a stat. Because it's, of course, not that well explained. Although actually in Division 1 on your character screen, looking through it nowadays, I should have spent a little bit more in here and just gone through this and just had a look. Although actually I noticed now that optimal range does not show up in here. But yeah, most of the other damage things do, and you can actually get a decent understanding just from looking at this, having, you know, understand that, yeah, if you have 41% against enemy armor damage, like that can make a difference. Plus having 58% DTE can help you melt through elites and such. And of course, in the higher difficulties in Division 1, it's mostly elites, so you can very much go into this. Also not having on-kill talents like Predatory for in-groups, because I feel like I used to run that and stuff. But it's interesting going back now with what I understand now about the Division 2 system and trying to kind of reapply it here. Although, of course, it's of course very different as well, because you have the different system of, instead of the cores, you have here firearms, stamina, electronics, which kind of translates into red cores, blue cores, yellow cores, but not exactly in the same way. There are numbers, you have mods altering those numbers, you have the cores of these applying, as you see here, some of them have, you know, the holsters have all three, and then everything else has can have it be into each of these categories, getting the numbers up. For instance, as well, of course, like the other loadout that I had here was a reclaimer. That's of course all into electronics, I think. Let's actually have a look. Mostly with some health here, although likely because I haven't rerolled this one yet. And yeah, having classified gear sets and such, the grind for them was actually pretty hard solo, because in groups, I feel going through legendaries, going through incursions and stuff. But I heard always that they were pretty good for it, but I was never doing those. So yeah, going back and trying to adapt current knowledge back and also current playstyle, because I feel back here I was very much, even though like I have cleaned these builds up a little bit, but I was much more of a sit in the back and like poke away and just take 10 minutes at a part of a mission. We're now much more of an aggressive player, just trying to find the edge and trying to murder people as fast as I can. And yeah, I think I'm going to stay around in Division 1 a little bit. One thing else I wanted to talk about, as I kind of had forgotten about, is actually the skill system in Division 1. First of all, yeah, you have the permanently unlocking perks and stuff, kind of in the same way of Division 2. You have talents. You got a bunch of talents here that you altered around. Most of them being not very impactful, but just minor things. And of course, nowadays, talents are only chest and backpack in Division 2. Here, having just minor things that you can apply. Just having, for instance, as well, entering this one, I feel for me is on every build that I use. Because yeah, entering any cover to reduce recoil by 25% for 10 seconds, just giving you a little bit of a recoil reduction. I feel this on everything. And having some of the minor things being separate talents outside of gear even, is actually something I would hope they would revisit. It of course adds a little bit into the clutter because you now have even more things to choose from. But it is something that I totally had forgotten about, honestly, and yeah. Then also with the skills, not having a revive hive and not having a shield. We do have a shield. It is basically effectively a bulwark. It is only with pistols outside of one gear set that allows you to run SMGs with it. But yeah, no Crusader or Striker shield. The difference that makes and opens up is actually quite big. I to the point that I'm very much of the mind of, man, I wish they would in some way well, I mean, they're not going to remove them now or limit them now, but the utility of those two pieces is, of course, very strong. But here as well, for instance, the utility of a pulse also, for instance, in this case, setting and showing all the loot, but also, as you see here, it also has a component of crit chance, crit damage. That already makes quite a big difference, because now that instead of just pulse being vision, pulse is also boost and also group wide. This is basically the coyote of this game. You generally want one person to be running this at all times. And now also putting a little bit into electronics, even though you don't get that big of a return, but you know, even having that little bit of into electronics, so I can also have Ferocious, for instance, be not on the free talent slot. While a little bit of a waste is not as big of a waste. It's kind of like running a yellow core extra, basically. But it is not completely wasted because also I can put that back into damage with the pulse. And the skill system in Division 1, honestly, well, first of all, it is a lot more clunky. All of the skills are so much more clunky with their deployments, with their... It is very much cleaned up in Division 2, where things like turrets being placed always go on top of... Or if you auto-place them, basically you double-tap them. They'll always go on top of your cover. Here, they quite often go to the sides of cover, which is super annoying. A lot of the skills feel a little bit more clunky. You can't target the turret. The thing with what you would do with a turret, of course, is you place it and then you want to target an enemy. In here, the second press is the deconstruct of the turret. So there's clunkiness like that. And yeah, we also have the much missed support station, which can do way too much. I can totally see why this got replaced with the hive system. Also having a system that kind of is this, but also has damaging versions, so you have to choose between the two. Because yeah, this as a heal is pretty powerful here. And also actually the one that I missed the most and kind of fell in love with again a little bit on that character is a smart cover, just because also for this weapon stability and accuracy. So if I need to sustain on somebody in the form of just unleashing, I can go into a cover, set this up, get this accuracy stability from here instead of from my stats or from my gear or my mods, and when I need it, it's there. When I'm just fighting just random, just, you know, randoms, it's not that much of an issue. But the skill system in Division 1, although obviously some things are, there is a balance here, and it's leaning a lot more towards some things over others. It is actually just not having 4 red bills, 2 skills be there as the predominant ones, makes it so that you actually do play around quite a bit. Now, for me, the pulse is very much just something that I basically always include. I'm a big proponent for vision, and also even in Division 2. Like, my setup, it usually isn't, even for red bills, isn't revive, hive, and shield. It's usually more revive, hive, and pulse for me. Also, as well, you have the survivor link, the recovery link, and the tactical link. These got turns into just minor buffs in Division 2. This is the group buffs in there. These are also all group-wide buffs, some in the form of also being to yourself as well. And yeah, this was also a reminder of why the system got removed, as tactical link being a very big damage buff. This would just basically get saved for the boss fights, and boss fights were usually easier than everything else, just because the tactical link would be saved for them. Making an ult, which just gives a super group buff, and bosses just melt. I can totally see why they removed these. It's kind of in the same vein as why damage reduction happened for named enemies with the specialization weapons, because that's also what in Division 2 was in the original parts. Is just everybody would just unload their grenade launcher and their special ammo and you know, their miniguns and everything into the bosses, because you know the bosses generally have also a moment that they spawn. Think of like Lincoln when they're like running down. You have plenty of time to just pull out your specialization weapon. And yeah, this was a good reminder of why this got removed, because this is kind of silly, especially in a little bit of coordinated group, which I did have a chance to play around a little bit with some buddies here. But yeah, the skill system in Division 1 is actually, well, much more limited as well, because we only have 9 skills here. But then also every skill here has actually, so for instance, where we the cluster we have, and then in the same way actually, but here there are mods to the base item. And some of them are actually usable, of course, as, yeah, for instance, just having, in this case, for instance, a form of CC for myself, or having a little bit more stability for myself is actually pretty good. Yeah, let's move on to the conclusion here. And to conclude this video, I would say I've very much been enjoying, as well as we have Wild Hedgehog appears, as we have some quiet time in Division 2, as we're in, you know, the final weeks before the new season. And the new season, as always, you know, there's a little bit of excitement, even though tempered currently. There is some excitement for it. I'm hoping it will that part will go well. We'll see what they have planned, likely on the 10th, with the Ubisoft event that is going to be then. But till then, I'm actually going to be hanging out a little bit out here in Div 1, and also getting back a little bit into Underground, maybe doing a few the mode that I never really got into, which is Survival. I wouldn't mind messing about a little bit with it, understanding a little bit more, and also cleaning up my older mistakes, I would say. As yeah, that Division, of course, just, yeah, it's they're the same game, but everything's a little bit shuffled. I feel the best analogy of that is if you look at how our gear is laid out. Where we have, you know, mask, and then backpack, and then chest, and then gloves, and then holster, and then knee pad. Everything except the glove is in a different slot. It's just shuffled around a little bit. Same with just, if you have a decent understanding of Division 2, taking that understanding back into Division 1 isn't that hard. Just, you can go full blast into damage and just get by in the same way as in Division 2. You can also try to get a little bit more into stamina and just having a little bit of survivability, and generally I don't mind having For instance, yeah, predatory as just the one thing that I have as towards healing myself up a little bit, especially solo where you're getting all the kills, of course. And yeah, it is very enjoyable. It is well worth a revisit if you haven't visited in a while. But it's also well worth a first visit. And if you are considering doing that, generally Division 1 goes on sale quite often. The base game, even I think at the week of this release, is on sale on the Epic Game Store for just $5. And even if you want the season pass with it, that's another $5, making it 10, giving you access to survival and an underground and stuff like that. But the base game, it is just the base game. There was never an expansion to it in the form of Woni, in the style of Woni. So you can actually go back and just for $5 go through the story. It took me about 20 hours to get to level 30. You would likely have another 5-6 hours, maybe 10, getting to World Tier 5 and getting to the end game if you're grinding it up normally. But that's, that's not that much time. And yeah, having gone through and revisiting the story, seeing again that, yeah, the Keener was right crowd is wrong. Keener was wrong. Keener was an idiot. And yeah, the meeting Fei Lao for the first time and such, yeah, it is very much enjoyable, of course. And I would really recommend it, going back and trying it out. It is just enough different that it is different, and it's mostly the same, so it feels like home. And yeah, it's well worth knowing at least the story of it, and maybe even the mechanics of it, as we might have a shuffling of this in Division 1 and 2. Maybe a little bit of 1 and a little bit of 2. So yeah, thank you for joining me on this ramble as we went through a little bit of Division 1 history and nostalgia, as very much this was a little bit of nostalgia for me. And I'll continue actually on in Division 1 a little bit for this week, and kind of gear myself up and kind of fix my old what I consider mistakes, as it wasn't too bad. I got by solo. But now to actually take basically what I know with Division 2 style and systems back into Division 1 is actually kind of fun, just trying to map it over. Of course, that works for a lot of other games as well. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please do all of the engagement and the things for the algorithm if you're willing. And as always, have a good night.